Humans have always been able to see the present and look into the past, but the future has remained obscure. That hasn't stopped people from trying to gain insight into what could come next, however. And in ancient times, seers and prophets would try their utmost to convince the world of their predictions for future events. When we look back now, though, some of those predictions are stranger than others. This is Unveiled, and today we're exploring 4 of the most bizarre predictions from ancient texts.
Do you need the big questions answered? Are you constantly curious? Then why not subscribe to Unveiled for more clips like this one, and ring the bell for more thought-provoking content.
Many civilizations throughout history have tried making predictions about the future. In ancient times, prophets were renowned as speakers of the gods and were regarded in high esteem as a result. The famous Oracle of Delphi in Greece, for example, was believed to be the speaker for the god Apollo for more than 12 centuries. The role was filled by different generations of people, always women, and referred to as the Pythia. The oracle was usually described as someone who could go into a trance-like state through which they could foretell future events, and the Greeks certainly trusted their predictions. Interestingly, the Greeks themselves claimed that the oracle's powers came from vapors in the ground, and to some degree, some modern researchers have backed that up, suggesting that there are cracks below the temple at Delphi where gases may have risen, and that those gases may have acted something like a mind-altering hallucinatory drug on the oracle inhaling them. Along with the more recent Nostradamus of the 16th century, the Oracle of Delphi is perhaps one of history's most famous future tellers. But there have been many more bizarre, although perhaps less prominent examples of past predictions too, laid out in ancient texts all over the world. First, there was the foretelling of doom, as per Zoroastrianism, a movement founded by the Iranian prophet Zoroaster, whose birth date is continually debated by scholars, with it generally said that he was alive sometime between 1700 and 600 BCE. Irrespective of the precise date, however, Zoroastrianism ranks as one of the oldest religions on the planet, and it very likely had a major influence on other religions to come. Almost all of what's known about Zoroaster himself is collected in the ancient text known as the Avesta. For the purposes of today's video, though, it's said in particular that Zoroaster predicted that doomsday would come when a meteor known as Gochir crashes into Earth at some unknown time in the future. This in itself perhaps isn't too crazy, as cometary collisions certainly do have the potential to wipe out humanity a la the dinosaurs at potentially any moment. What sets Zoroaster's comet apart, however, is that it's told that it will crash with such heat that it'll melt all the metal on Earth, creating a massive flood of boiling liquid metal that will wash over everything. It's said that literally everyone will be inescapably engulfed by this molten metal maelstrom, but whether you're harmed or not depends on how good a person you are. It's said that wicked people will feel all the pain of being drowned in boiling metal, while good people will feel nothing more than something akin to warm milk washing over their skin. Afterwards, it's said that the divine savior known as Saoshyant will create a substance from the fat of an ox, and this substance will give all surviving humans the gift of immortality. While there may be some comparisons to be drawn here between this and the various religious myths of a great flood, the bizarre waves of boiling metal conjure up a truly unique mental image. This is by no means the only ancient prediction to have foretold the end of the world, though. One of the most well-known doomsday predictions in general is the Norse belief in Ragnarok, an ultimate battle which, according to the legend, will extinguish most of life on Earth. Most of the details for Ragnarok were collected in an ancient text known as the Poetic Edda, authored sometime around the 1100s, but containing information from older sources too. What's perhaps a little less well known, though, is just how bizarre the events of Ragnarok are. First, there's a fairly unsurprising period of war on Earth, but it's said that will be followed by a series of raging blizzards. While versions of the legend can vary, it usually follows that the world will then descend into complete chaos, characterized by brutal bloodshed and sexual depravity. When the god Loki enters the fray, he descends to Earth in a ship of the dead called Naglfar, made up of, amongst other things, human fingernails. The sun and the moon disappear as they're both eaten by wolves, and natural disasters, including earthquakes and huge waves, gradually destroy the planet. The stars in the sky vanish completely, and all whilst a sort of zombie apocalypse unfolds on the ground as the undead are risen to wreak havoc. While parts of the legend may be deemed more allegorical than anything else, there are few apocalypse stories to match this one, and few doomsday predictions with quite as many unexpected details. Not all predictions foretell the end, however. Next, we're heading to the Roman Empire, the most enduring empire in history, standing as it did for more than 1,500 years. However, the Romans didn't only have confidence that their rule would last a long time, they sincerely thought that it would last forever, into infinity. Much of what we know about the Roman mindset comes from the epic poem The Aeneid, written by the poet Virgil between 29 and 19 BCE. And while there isn't enough evidence to claim that literally all Romans fully believed in what the Aeneid laid out, it's generally said that they were convinced it outlines the general truth of the founding of Rome, and they truly did believe in the gods it depicted. In the text, Jupiter, king of the gods, tells of his plans for Rome's greatness, declaring imperium sine fine, which translates to mean an empire without end. Moreover, and to what makes this prediction particularly bizarre, Jupiter also said that Rome would be unbound by restrictions in both time and space, essentially granting it unlimited rule, forever, and perhaps even rule beyond physical possibilities. The Romans, then, thought that they would never fade, with some claims that they genuinely believed a leader could rule for far longer than a human lifetime. On the one hand, these can be seen as but misplaced and ambitious beliefs, but on the other, imagine how different Earth might have been today had Rome never fallen. Imagine how different it might have become 1,000, 100,000, or even a million years from now if the Roman Empire never disappeared. But finally, and despite that overriding feeling of apparently unchecked optimism in Rome, there was at least one prediction of imminent peril around at the time. In fact, the Roman prophet known as the Tiburtine Sibyl is said to have concocted such a terrible and visceral doomsday prediction that it supposedly scared the Roman public for centuries. The earliest versions of the text describing the Tiburtine Sibyl's potentially prophetic tale date back to around the 4th century BCE, and the story itself begins with 100 men who all experience the same vision revolving around 9 suns appearing in the sky, each more unruly and ominous than the last. The Tiburtine Sibyl determines that the 9 suns represent 9 generations of humankind, leading ultimately to a dark and merciless judgment day. Among the suns that the men saw, there's one that's completely black, one that's made of smoke, another that's seemingly formed of blood, and the last sun, which is described as being the most intense and terrible of all. The Tiburtine Sibyl pitched the series as to foretell the coming of the Antichrist, who it was said would one day in the future use his powers to create unparalleled chaos and evil. When the final sun rises, Judgment Day comes, and at that moment, according to the prediction, the Antichrist will slay 2 witnesses, but will subsequently be slain himself at the hands of an archangel. Again, There are perhaps similarities to be drawn between this and other outwardly religious Judgment Day stories, but the Tiburtine Sibyl's variation remains shocking and bizarre. If it really did terrify the Romans at the time, it's perhaps little wonder. Of course, it's not as though strange predictions and ominous prophecies are only a fascination of ancient times. There have been countless others made much more recently, even within just the last few decades. Some relate to events supposedly soon to unfold. But those are for another video. For now, those are 4 of the most bizarre predictions taken from ancient texts.
What do you think? Is there anything we missed? Let us know in the comments. Check out these other clips from Unveiled, and make sure you subscribe and ring the bell for our latest content.